All right, Jerry, what do hippies and SEOs have in common?
What do hippies and SEOs have in common? I have no idea.
Anything organic.
Oh, that was a deep joke. Good job, Taylor. I love
There's
that.
a guy in Ireland that has a social media radio show you should connect with. He tells social media jokes like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll get on it.
Anything organic. I love it.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, that's true, Chelsea. All right, welcome to the Masterful Morning Show special masterclass edition. This season of the Masterful Manifestors, we have invited a special guest mentor to help our Masterful Manifestors with their social media strategy. And who better to invite than the founder of 5 Minute Social Media, Jerry Potter. Thank you so much, Jerry, for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
So I have known Jerry for a few years now. I have watched him closely. I have learned a whole lot on his YouTube channel. It is a phenomenal YouTube channel. Check it out. And I am now in his membership and I am loving it so much. So Jerry, I'm so excited that you're coming here to share about social media goals and work with our Masterful Manifestors today. Take it away.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to be here too, and just kind of a little bit of my backstory to give you a idea of like how did I get here. I was working with a company in I think it was 2014, and the company was like, "All right, we figured out the Facebook algorithm. We're just going to post every 30 minutes, and if we do that, we'll just be in people's feeds all the time." And that's 48 times a day. And if you do the math, it's about 17,000 posts a year. So if you've ever struggled to come up with like 3 posts for a week, you can imagine what that was like. And that was the very beginning of me going, there's got to be a better way. And obviously a lot has changed since 2014 in social media, but I was like 48 posts a day. This is insane. And this was a big company and they had a team so they could do it. But I just thought, this isn't doing anything. Like you're just shoving stuff at people. You're certainly not doing the social part. This is just the media part. So I, from there, a few years back, I started this YouTube channel, 5 Minute Social Media. And my whole thing was, I think this can be simpler for people. And I want to get it out there and I wanted to use YouTube, or I wanted to learn more about YouTube. So I decided to start a channel, and it really was a hobby in the beginning. And, I really enjoyed it. I've always liked video, but I must have hit a nerve. Because after a short while, it took off, and I'm humbled to say that we recently crossed 100,000 subscribers on the channel, because there are people out there that were like, yes, can you make this easier? Can we do it shorter? And what I found that everybody was talking about social media was talking about it like as your full-time job. But if it's in like any of you that are here or anybody else watching, it's probably like you're running a company, or for some people I know, you have a full-time job and you have your side hustle. And so there's not like there's 40 hours a week just for social media. So what we're going to talk about tonight or this morning, depending on where you are, is social media goal setting. And this really is the key to getting your social media working right. Like anybody that comes into my program, any of my programs, like 5 Minute Social Academy that Marian mentioned she's a member of, like once you get this right, everything else kind of falls into place. So this is, this isn't everything, but it is the most important part. And so I'm going to share my screen here really quick and talk a little bit more about this. But Marian shared that you guys are all about goal setting. And so we thought this would be kind of a good tie-in. I'll also warn you too, this is, I hope nobody's too introverted, because we're going to do this workshop style with those of you that are here in the, with us live in Zoom. So I'm going to be looking to you to learn a little bit about your business and talk about what your social media goals might be. So goals are the way I stumbled across this was many years ago. I had I was working for an agency, and I was, I was killing it. I felt like I'm doing all this so well. And I went in and was going to do a client meeting, and I thought it was going to be like, wow, you're amazing. This is so great. And he was like, hey, it looks nice and all. Cool that you're getting comments and we're reaching people, but I'm not seeing any sales here. And I just remember feeling devastated, like, oh man, like I felt like I had just won the social media, Super Bowl or World Series or whatever for this client. We had a post go viral, their page had reached hundreds of thousands of people organically. And it was not that at all. And so that was the beginning of trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this work? And when you get goals and you get your goals right, like magical things happen. Like these are two people that are in my programs. The one on the left is guy's name is Tom Love, and he is in Florida in the United States. And he figured out what his goal was, which was basically to make people aware of the problem that he solved in his area. He has a local business. I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, he cleans dryer vents. Okay. So these are not always the sexiest businesses or anything like that. He cleans out dryer vents so they don't start fires, so your dryer runs better, so your clothes dry, or different things like that. And once he figured out, all he needed to do was get in front of the right demographic and show them how bad their dryer could be if they didn't do anything about it. All of a sudden, he had no problem booking business, and he had one post, and he put $10 behind it, and he booked $3,000 worth of business from it. And then on the right side of the screen, for those of you can see it, but it's another member, and her name is Michelle Taylor, and she realized that if I get people on my webinar, I can convert them into my membership. And so we came up with a goal to get people onto her webinars and came up with a strategy to do it. She put a post in somebody else's Facebook group and ended up with over 100 people signing up for her webinar, and then booked like $17,000 in annual revenue from this one free post. And I've never had a $17,000 post. I don't know if I've even had a $3,000 post, but that's what's possible when we start focusing on the right things. So what I'm going to cover tonight, and like I said, it's going to get interactive here in a second. But first, why most businesses skip this step. It's very natural. So if you've never thought about social media goals specifically, and some people have social media goals, but they're not in the way that I'm talking about it. And I'll share what that is here in a second. We'll talk about that. Second piece is defining what is a social media goal, as well as what's not a social media goal. And then we're going to workshop your goals. So we're going to talk about these for those of you in the group. And I found that working with other business owners, or anybody, even if you do this for, sometimes it's for a hobby, sometimes it's for a nonprofit, whatever you're using social media for, I can teach and give examples, but this is the point where it really becomes more understandable, is when we actually get in and work on them together. So, and then last thing I want to show you is how, once you have your goals, you can slash your workload by basically reverse engineering them to get rid of a lot of stuff that doesn't matter anymore. So I've heard a lot of people say this over the years: social media is only good for top of mind awareness. And I don't know if you've ever said this or thought it. I sure have, many times. And looking back, it was often the excuse I would give because my social media wasn't working. That was kind of like that meeting that I had with the client, where it's like, hey, yeah, looks cool. Look at all those comments and likes, and it feels special. But when are the sales going to go up? And agency people or contractors will say things like, well, it's good for your top of mind awareness. But if that's all you're getting, I don't think it's worth your time. And it can be part of your strategy, but you should be getting more from your social media than just that. So the typical social media plan, whenever somebody sets up a new business, and this is not everybody, but I think this is the majority of the population, myself included, is we go, okay, I've got this new thing. I got to set up all my networks. So I got to get on Facebook and Instagram and, now TikTok and then in Instagram, I got to get on Reels and the feed and stories and live and DM. And, we set up all this stuff, and then we start posting. That's step 2. So set up the network, step 1. Step 2, start posting. Step 3, wait for money. And we'll sit there and we're like, okay, so I've been posting. I'm doing what everybody says. I've been posting the 3 times a week. I'm getting engagement. Like, when are people going to start giving me their credit card, or, whatever it might be? And this is typical, and it's intuitive, and that's why we do it. And some of it, the reason we do it is because we kind of see other people do it. We do it because it's logical. But the point that we're missing, the step that we're missing, is setting specific social media goals. Okay. And so I want to talk about social media goals. These first are different than your business goals. So your business goal might be to grow 10% year over year if you're fancy, or it might just be get more clients or get more customers or increase sales or anything like that. And that's fine. It's good to have those business goals, but this is not the same as a business goal. It might be different even from your marketing goal. Your marketing goal might be to increase our audience size, or to increase our followers, or to get X number of new leads, or anything like that. And it could be that, but a lot of times they're different even from the marketing goal. these are goals that are going to be specific to social media, because this is the only way that this works. So we talked a little bit there about what they aren't. A couple more things that social media goals aren't are social media goals are not posting 3 times a week. Okay, that's a to-do list. That's not a social media goal. Social media goal is not to gain 10 followers a week necessarily, because followers don't necessarily lead to revenue or donations or whatever it is that your specific goal is. You know, there's a woman that story's a couple of years old now, but she had 2 million followers on Instagram and tried to launch a t-shirt line, and I don't think she made $1 from it. So followers do not equal revenue or business growth in that sense. So what we're looking for is a specific social media goal that will lead to you making money. And when you figure out what that is, it can change everything very, very quickly. So one example is you want to start by figuring out what happens right before someone buys from you. So I usually talk about this as the catalyst for the sale, or again, the donation, or whatever else it might be. So in almost any business, there's a thing or a few things that trigger that sale. In my business, for example, I know that people will often join my membership or invest in my course or hire me for a coaching day if we get into a one-on-one conversation. And it doesn't necessarily mean a Zoom call for an hour. It's not like a big, long discovery call or anything like that. It a lot of times is just, a couple of DMs on Instagram. And it happens because I learn about what their business or, what their business is and what they're trying to do. And I can kind of help them, show them the potential of social media. And then they say, oh, great. What else do you have? And I say, oh, if you'd like, I've got this membership, for example. So that's a social media goal for me, because it gets people, like, it's the thing that happens right before somebody becomes a client or a customer. For some businesses, especially if your business has not traditionally been online, think about the thing that happens right before, think about it, in a way that if social media doesn't exist, if it didn't exist, what would be the thing that you would do that would happen right before somebody happened to hire you or buy from you? And so this can be different for, any number of, it's different for everybody. Another one of mine is to, get people on my email list, because I know for X number of people who join my email list, a certain number will go on to join one of my paid programs. So you want to be thinking about this, and we're going to workshop this with you guys here in just a second. Think about the thing that happens right before you have somebody buy. It could be that they find out there's a discount. It could be a certain awareness about your product or service, like with Tom, the dryer vent cleaning guy. Like, all he had to do was get in front of the right neighborhoods at the right income level and be like, hey, this could be your dryer here. And they were like, oh gosh, yeah, I want to get that fixed. It was just awareness that it was even a thing. I didn't know dryer vent cleaners were a thing until Tom joined my course. I was like, oh, I didn't know that was the thing. It could be that you are, your social media goal is that they find out that you worked with a certain someone, or that you've won an award, or that you have a certain credibility or something. But there's something that triggers things for people where they go, okay, that's the person I want to work with, or that's the product I want to buy, or anything kind of like that. So I want to give one more example here, and then I want to talk to some of you guys about your businesses and what your goals are, and workshop this a bit. But Joanna Inks is an online child sleep consultant, and Talos and I were talking before we hopped on, and I think Melanie said that she was homeschooling the kids today. And so anybody who's ever had a baby knows that when your baby won't sleep through the night, you're pretty much ready to do anything, right? Like, if somebody was like, I can fix it, it's $10,000. And if you had $10,000, you'd be like, worth it. Like, it is a dire time. And maybe all your babies slept wonderfully. I don't know, but we had a rough time with our first one. So she found, like I said, what happens right before somebody buys from you? And she goes, oh, well, they usually download my free guide, 7 ways to get your baby to sleep better by this weekend. And then they get a series of emails, and the third email asks them to book or the second email, whatever it is, asks them to book a consultation. And then we get on a consultation, and then I close about 80% of people that I get onto a Zoom call with. I said, okay, so your goal then is to get people to download that guide. And 2 days later, she'd booked $1,400 worth of new business because she figured out, and she'd been posting inspirational quotes and pictures of cute babies sleeping and all kinds of other stuff on social media for months and months and not getting anything from it. Now, once we talk about it, it seems simple. And I'm not here claiming that I've discovered anything magical or that, this isn't a magic pill. It is kind of obvious once you hear it. It's just a matter of figuring out what that is. But it is a lot harder to figure out what that goal is for some businesses than others. For Joanna, she already had a thing. She essentially had a funnel built. And it was just she just didn't know how to get that in front of people. And then as soon as she did and knew that that was where she should focus her energies, it was, business became easy. And she actually, a few months ago, I'd reached out to her and I said, hey, I tell your story still, how are things going? And she goes, actually, my business has gotten to the point where I don't use social media anymore because I don't need it. She brought on a partner and they are just booked solid nonstop. And she goes, so I don't post anymore. I don't want to expand anymore. I don't want to hire anybody else. I'm just happy with where it is. And so I just keep collecting reviews and, off we roll. So if anyone's dream is to not be on social media anymore, that can happen too. I know sometimes it's like, one of the tough things with social media is that it feels so forever, right? You come up with a plan and you're like, okay, I'm going to post 3 times a week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it feels like, okay, so then I just have to do this for the rest of my life until I'm done. It's just like starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or anything like that. And so that's part of the part that feels daunting, I think, quite a bit with that. So what I would like to do now, though, is actually talk about social media goals in very specific situations with your businesses. And is anybody super outgoing and wants to definitely go first? Raise hands. Or Marla? Okay, great. Marla, you want to unmute?
Sure.
And we'll start with you. Hi,
Sure.
nice to meet you.
Hi
So
there.
tell me
Nice to meet you, Jerry.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your business, and then off the top of your head, if you were to name your social media goal right now, or actually, let's not even get to the goal part. What's the thing that happens right before somebody buys from you or hires you?
Well, mine is very different in that it's entertainment and it's not a business where I'm asking people to buy anything. So I have a lot of questions about that since it is so different. I collect wind-up toys, and last week I became the Guinness World Record holder for having the most wind-up toys in a private collection. I've got 1,258 toys, thank you. So one of the things I'm doing is trying to capitalize on that. I've had a YouTube channel since October, and I post 3 videos a week showing my wind-up toys and just kind of coming up with themes. And like today, I just recorded 2 videos going through the decades. I did the 70s and the 80s. So trying to get creative with that. And I really went into it. My mission is just to inspire people to, have more fun and joy and laughter in their life. And so that really was my end goal. And now I'm thinking I want to get on the Ellen Show. I want to have my own talk show, interviewing people with collections. So that's where I'm heading with it. And now I've also started thinking about monetizing it. And I've been toying with this, and I'm thinking now that I am a Guinness World Record holder, maybe this would be the time. I have no idea how to do that. And I have thought of ways, I don't want to sell toys because, my wind-up toys cost like $6. So not a lot of money in that, but there may be other ways. I'm talking about maybe collaborating with some toy companies, some toy stores, doing reviews for toys. So that's where I'm at. And, whenever I listen to people like you, it is about, I think, creating value for people. That's what I always hear. Like, what problem can you help them solve? And for me, it's more entertainment and just wanting them to be more joyful. I'm not sure where to go with that.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things that you said. First of all, I love that this is clearly a passion for you, because it's obviously going to, be much easier for you to continue and put in whatever you need to put in to turn this into something. At the same time, sometimes when we're emotional about it, it can be, extra stressful. And sometimes I don't know about you, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so that, that plays in sometimes where I'm like, it's got to be perfect. And it's like, no, it doesn't. I think there's a lot of ways that you could manifest, or not manifest, that you could monetize this. And this is getting away a little bit from the goals, but we kind of have to go there first before we can figure out what the goals are. I know you say you don't want to sell toys, but if, this channel grew and you had 10,000 subscribers and, I don't know, does Amazon sell wind-up toys?
Yes.
I assume they do.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be in the Amazon Associates program and just like spotlight and review toys and then have people buy through your link. And again, are you going to make much on a $6 toy? No. But if 1,000 people do it, it can add up pretty quickly. So that's not you selling toys yourself. That's basically you referring people to different toys. But what ways have you thought about making money? Because, the other thing you said, you talked about, okay, we have to solve a problem. That's every business in the world. What is the problem that we solve? But for you, if the problem you're solving is entertainment, you still got to find a way to monetize that. So, is it YouTube ads, which don't pay that well? Is it, teaching people how to find hard to find collectibles, or like what do you have in mind with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what I'm kind of brainstorming right now. And I did think of affiliate programs. I think those could be good. But I think in order to do that, I have to expand out of the market, not out, but just expand the market of wind-up toys where it is other toys. And I know there's a lot of people doing this, which I guess is a good sign, competition. And I think they're mostly younger people focusing on toys for young people. And mine is more nostalgia. I think most of my followers are like, well, I think the age range is like 18 to 35 or something like that. And it's a lot about nostalgia. And those are the people that are now connecting with me. So maybe taking a different angle, but I definitely feel like I need to expand somehow from the types of videos I'm doing right now. So I like what you said, about Amazon and others as well. If I can connect with some toy companies, which I have, and unfortunately the wind-up toy business isn't doing real well right now. And most of the toys are very cheaply made in China. And so nothing great is being created. There's a big market on eBay, which, I started collecting before there was e-commerce. So that's not really how I collect. So I don't know. I just think that I have to expand it, though, to include other toys. And one of the other things I have thought about is, well, the toy review thing. And I think that could take me to that next level of with a collaboration. There's a toy store locally that I could partner with and maybe even go into their store to get publicity for them as well and review some of their products. And again, I'm not going to review like toys for babies or anything like that. That's not, my thing. So it's more like adult type things. So yeah, I didn't go into it with this intention. But now that I've been doing it like since October and I'm spending a lot of money on it, I would like to turn it more into a business.
Yeah. Well, the Guinness World Record thing is super cool, and that kind of gives you an authority right from the start. You absolutely could, go down the, the toy review, direction with that. I have a friend in Seattle, and his name is Joel, and he has a YouTube channel called the 3D Printing Nerd. And Joel was a programmer for Adobe for a lot of years, but he always had this dream of like having his own like radio show or TV show or something. And he got into 3D printing, like, he had one of the first like home 3D printers that you could buy for a reasonable amount, and started this YouTube channel at the exact right time. And he's got, I want to say probably 400,000 subscribers or more like now. And so now these companies send him their products. They fly him to conventions. Before COVID, like he was being flown to Europe to like be at somebody's booth at a convention. So there's a lot of ways that you could go with this. The nice thing for him about 3D printers is even though they're gotten a lot cheaper, they're still not $6 products, right? That's going to be your biggest challenge there. But if you expand it to more toys, there's certainly a lot more, there are a lot of higher priced toys. So back to the social media goals though. Let's say 90 days from now, you're figuring out where you're going to go with this, how you're going to monetize it. Like 90 days from now, what would be what I call like a 90-day win? Like, are you trying to get to a certain number of subscribers on YouTube? Are you trying to grow an email list? Like where would you want to be at the end of June this year?
Okay, so at the end of my goal is by the end of October to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I've recently been getting into TikTok, and I don't even know, it keeps growing. So I could definitely get to 1,000 followers there. I'm at about 600 now. But my question to you is, what does that really mean? I mean, is that an important goal to have? That has been my goal, but doesn't a lot of it have to do with the algorithms? And even though you have these subscribers, are they watching your videos? So that would be my question, because that has been my goal, is 1,000 subscribers and 1,000 followers on TikTok.
And that's a question that only you can answer, because I don't know what your goals are. If you tell me, for example, I want to grow my YouTube subscriber base, well, then we would go back and we would build your social media goals around building your YouTube subscriber base. So for example, you could, post on social media about a video you have coming out that's not out yet. Hey, this is going to be out on Thursday. Hit subscribe, click that bell so you're notified when it releases, getting people excited in anticipation, because that's a specific reason. Asking people to go, hey, subscribe to my YouTube channel for tips and tricks is really generic. But if you said, hey, I've got a new video where I'm doing this, this, and this, if you want to make sure to be notified when it comes out, go hit subscribe now. And then when it's released next week, you'll get the notification. But what do those numbers mean? If you want to be on Ellen, if you had 500,000 subscribers and a Guinness World Record, that helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be transparent about my channel. I've got 100,000 subscribers. A lot of it is vanity, because people, like you said, it's not like I release a video and 100,000 people watch it the first week. That would be a whole different ballgame. That would be amazing. But for my industry, 1 week I'm helping somebody with a strategy thing, and then the next week I'm saying how to set up a Facebook business page. Well, if you already have one, that's irrelevant. So for me, like I push to get to that 100,000 mark because I know that gets me, I can get booked as a speaker, invited on podcasts. It looks good on my website. It's social proof, it's authority, but it doesn't necessarily directly translate into revenue. So my social media goal has never been to get that number up. So that's where you really want to figure out what is it that you want, and then we can build the social media goal around that. Because otherwise you're just kind of, doing what I call posting and hoping, right?
Yeah.
I have a woman in my membership, and she is a ventriloquist comedian. Her name's Trish Dunn, and she's based in the UK and the US. And we did a strategy call a couple of weeks ago about getting her booked in theaters for the holidays. And that is a very specific goal. But a lot of the other times in entertainment, you are sometimes just chasing those vanity metrics and hoping to get discovered. But depending on what you're doing, that's important. So for her, she is putting out all this content. She's on TikTok. I think she's releasing a video every day. She's trying to grow her YouTube channel. She's got Facebook. But what she has in place is basically she's driving people either to her website or to Facebook as much as possible, so that when she has a show, she can retarget all of those people who watched her videos or engaged with her page, or on her email list or visited her website in that area. So if all of a sudden she books a theater show in Miami, all of that stuff that she's done to get in front of people and get them interested, she can now serve an ad just to people who have watched her stuff within 30 minutes of Miami. So that's just another example of a social media goal for entertainment. Is she's just trying to get people to like her, and then to be on a platform that she can track them so that when her show, like when she books a show there, she can retarget those people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to your question about the goals, I want to get 1,000 YouTube subscribers. That's been my main goal. And I don't know, like eventually I'm thinking, you know, I want to have a TV show. I don't know if it's like an internet show or it's just another YouTube channel where I'm interviewing people that have unusual collections. So that's where I'm heading. And I'm posting on Instagram every day, 3 videos a week on YouTube, and TikTok every day. And I'm doing one of the things you said about, you know, this new video is coming out. So I do some of that. Yeah.
Chelsea says, I love Marla's TikToks. The songs are always on point.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Laugh out loud every time.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So
and so if that's the case, then, you know, make sure on TikTok you are driving people to subscribe on YouTube, and make sure on anywhere else that you're posting, because that's the goal that you're trying to get. I'll also tell you, you're probably getting close, you know, and this Guinness record thing has got to be a nice bump. I don't know if you've made a video about that yet, but it's going to be like, so I'll tell you, it took me 6 months to get to 100 subscribers. And then a month later, I had 1,000. So you might be getting to the point. Marion sent me a video about, you know, some of the people that were going to be here, and I think you were at 165 subscribers or something like that. So you might be at that point where it's about to pop. So it may come a lot sooner than you think. The other piece is, you know, if you want to have your own talk show, have your own talk show. Like there's nothing, like if you've got the time, there's nothing holding you back. You could put them on the same channel, or you could put them on in a Facebook group or on a Facebook page or whatever it might be. But unless you think it's going to hurt your current channel, I would keep everything right where it is and start interviewing people. You know, the steps from YouTube to having your own show getting picked up by, well, I mean, you know, you have your own show, then you get featured on Ellen, and all of a sudden somebody offers you your own paid web show. Like, great. Or you might just have a web show that takes off and, you know, and pays for itself. I mean, there are people, you know, I made the joke about YouTube ads don't pay that well, but it really depends on how many people are watching and how much basically it's based on how valuable your audience is. So there's I forget what the term is, but there's like a rate. So for example, because a lot of my audience is business owners, there are a lot of people trying to target business owners on YouTube. So that's actually a more valuable audience than, you know, some like I have a friend who has a son who has a 19-year-old son who's basically just started this vlog, and he's just all personality, and he had a video go viral, and he's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to go, but your audience value is different, you know, for each person. But if you've got people watching, you know, I had a call last week with a guy who told me he makes $25,000 a month on AdSense from YouTube. And I was like, what? And he's got a big business, so that was just part of it. But have a talk show. Like, what, I mean, if that's what you want, it's not, you know, I worked as a radio personality or presenter for years before I pivoted in 2015. And so I've been a lifelong content creator. And it was nice because I had a 100,000 watt radio signal behind me and all this other stuff. But now anybody can do that. And I've reached over 1 million people around the world on YouTube with no corporation help. And that's more than I ever reached on the radio, you know, and I was on #1 shows in a couple of cities. And so the technology is there. Everybody can be a media company. So I would, you know, if nothing's holding you back, like you've got the time, then go for it.
Yeah. And how do I do that? I mean, would it be a YouTube channel? Is that where you start?
Yeah. Okay. That's where I'd start, because YouTube is a search engine. And
right.
Like Facebook is really hard to get discovered on because people aren't searching there and they're not looking for videos. You know, you could try that, but YouTube is where people go searching for things. And so, you know, find 3 people, interview them, edit it up, see how it looks, and then you can kind of decide from there. You could start a secondary channel, you know, called Wind Up Collectors, or, you know, whatever it might be, or you could have it on the same channel, depending on how different it is from what you have. One of the
Yeah.
main things with subscribers, I'll say this last thing, and then I want to make sure we give some other people some time here. But one of the main things with subscribers is that when you ask somebody to subscribe to your YouTube channel, you want to make sure that you are giving them the reason they should subscribe, and then you are also keeping that promise.
Mhm.
So if you say, 3 times a week I feature a new toy, and all of a sudden, and there are these videos that are, I don't know, 2 to 8 minutes or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're dropping in these 40-minute interviews with people, unedited interviews. Now you're sort of breaking your promise to your subscriber. So that's a big thing with YouTube subscribers. Like I say, hey, if you want to get, it's varied over the years, but the gist is, if you want to streamline your social media so you're getting the most results with the least effort, that's what we teach. And if that sounds like something you can use, hit subscribe, click that bell, and that will be notified each week when we release another helpful video. You can tell I've said that a few times, but that's, have that promise there ready for them. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jerry.
All
This has
right.
been great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, what you do with it. Chelsea,
Thanks.
I think you're next.
All right. Marla, I really love your TikToks. I literally laugh out loud every time. Like the
Yay.
music is always so on point. I think they're so funny. Hi.
Thanks.
Hi. Now I got to go find Marla on TikTok.
You do. You definitely do. I am a nutrition coach and a tarot reader. So I help my clients heal their gut and reconnect with their intuition through diving into gut health and all that good stuff. And then also the spiritual mindset side of things via tarot readings. My main focus right now is selling my online course. So I have an evergreen online course it's a gut health course. So selling that, getting people on my email list, selling that, and selling tarot readings. So those are kind of my two things. They kind of exist as like 2 parts of me right now. And eventually in my business, I hope to really combine them. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look quite yet. But yeah, I'd say like my overarching goal is getting people on my email list.
Is the intuition side of your business and the gut health side of your business, are those the same people?
I think
Or is
so.
it like 2 different audiences?
So I think right now so when I work with clients one-on-one, the clients that I work with one-on-one are they're definitely the same. Like they are into the spiritual side of things. They know the energetic and physical connection between those 2 things. But so I definitely attract that type of person. I wouldn't say I only attract that type of person though. Like I definitely get the people who are just like, I just need nutrition advice. Like, what do I do?
Right. Yeah. And that's the reason I asked that question. In my business, I help people with copywriting and website strategy and email and all these other things, but the social media is the front, right? That's what people come to me for. But then obviously if they need that, sometimes there's other stuff. So once they're in my programs, like on my Q&As, I'm like, we talk about whatever you want. What do you need help with this week? But the one thing that, is great about social media is it is allowed companies to be more human, even if it is a big company or a big corporation. Like essentially your brand has its own personality or persona. And the easier it is for a persona to be understood or a brand to be understood, the more familiar it feels. The other challenge that you sometimes run into with, something like this is if it's like, hey, I need, let's say I love tarot, but I don't need any health. I don't have any, intestinal issues or anything like that. Or I've got health issues, but I don't believe in tarot. Now, I've been ruled out as your client, and there's plenty of people in the world. Like one of the things I always talk about is I think there's people for all of us, right? Sometimes people say, I got to get my piece of the pie. And I think it was author Jeff Walker who said, let's bake a bigger pie, right? There's plenty of stuff out there for all of us. But you do need your business to be easy to understand on the front end. And so if I am looking for one of the best gut health people, then if I see the person with the, imagine if you're walking through the mall or you're walking down the street and you come across this store and you're like, the world's best chocolate chip cookies and oil changes. And it's like, well, I guess I could have a chocolate chip cookie while I got my oil changed, but are you really the best at both? And so that's just something to kind of think about going forward. But that might be your thing. That might be your jam. And if you found a way that they work together and those are your people, great. The other way to approach that, though, is to have one of them be the front end of your business, and then the other end can kind of be the back end. Or you can do, where one channel is for one side of it and the other channel is for the other side. Like Instagram is for one, Facebook's for the other. Some people can follow you on both because they're into both of them. But if somebody's following a social media account and one day it's like, hey, make sure that you're getting these essential antioxidants for, gut health. And I'm making that up. I don't know if that is legit or not, or makes any sense or not, but, and then the next day you're like, hey, if you get the sword card, this is what's in your future. It's kind of, to go back to my days in radio, like they would experiment and be like, look, we have all these people who love country and hip hop and metal. We should put them all on one station. But when somebody would tune into a radio station, they were in the mood for hip hop or country or metal and not all three, even though they had all three on their iPod, back then. So that's something to keep in mind. That the best example from people that I've worked with in my programs has been somebody who sells art and also teaches people like how to paint. And they have, struggled sometimes for years because even though it seems very natural to do both, those are two different audiences for the most part. So the last thing I'll say on this, and I actually just got this from one of my members last week. She did a Venn diagram. And that's where you have like for example, you'd have your two circles of your two audiences and then the section that's both of them. So you write everything about them that's true for both of them in the middle and then what's on each side. And if you talk just about the stuff in the middle, that's crossed over, you can kind of talk to both audiences at once in a way. So, but back to your goal, you said the email list, that's a great goal for anybody. The email list is the only thing that we own in terms of marketing. My YouTube channel could be gone tomorrow. Marlo's TikTok could be gone tomorrow. And so that's always, I think, a good thing to be growing. You just want to make sure if that's your goal, that the rest of the trail is there too. Like they join your email list and then they get a couple of information emails and then they get invited to a webinar and then they hire you one-on-one or whatever that might be. So before I would set that as my social media goal, I would make sure that I've got the back end in place that works. Because if you're just driving a bunch of people to your email list, but then they're not turning into anything, then it's kind of like, it looks good because you're like, hey, I got 10 subscribers this week. But that's not, you want to make sure the rest is happening. Now, if you discover that for every 20 new subscribers you get, 4 become paying clients, and that's well worth your time, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, here we go. I'm all, like Joanna that I talked about, I'm all in on that. And it can be really, really powerful with that.
Yeah, I've got the funnel. I've got the
okay,
freebie
cool.
opt-ins. I've got the webinars. I've got the email sequences. I've got all the back end, like really where I want it to be. I actually just this week did some like reorganizing and rewriting of emails, and I feel really good about that. So now it's just getting people to it.
Okay. The other thing to keep in mind too is a lot of times what will come up at this point is it's like, okay, so do I just ask people to join my email list every day? And the answer to that is obviously not. And there's a couple of things that in the membership, I have this masterclass that I created in January called How to Create the Perfect Posts for your business. And it's all about essentially creating a system of like 4 to 5 types of posts that you can just repeat over and over again. And they're all driving toward your goal, even though they might not be directly your goal. So for example, you just said you've got your freebie, you've got your email sequence and all that, and that's great. But for all of us, before somebody hires us or just as one example, or buys from us or whatever it is, there's usually some beliefs that you have to change or some objections that you have to overcome. And that's what your other posts can kind of be building up to that. So if you had a series of 4 posts, the first one might be, defining your authority. So for Marla, it could be about being a Guinness World Record holder in the toy world. You know, for you, it might be a personal, you know, it doesn't have to be an award or a certification. It can be a personal experience. It can be a testimonial, a review, any number of things, but something that shows people that you know what you're talking about. The fourth one might be the one where you ask them to join your email list or buy into a program or something like that. The second one might be changing their beliefs about something, like is there something unique about the way that you deal with you know, like GI health in terms of whether it's all natural or alternative to traditional medicine or anything like that?
Yeah, it's definitely a holistic approach. I'd say like the biggest thing is, you know, when people come to me, I say, we're not just going to talk about what foods to eat. Like, we're going to dive deeper and figure out what nutrients and, you know, what your body needs and how to get it. Not just this food's good, this food's bad.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly that. You know, talking about why you're different is often a good social media goal. That's a lot of times when people get hired, is they find out why somebody's different. Talking about, you know, you also might need to convince somebody who's all about traditional medicine. They've always just been a Pepto-Bismol person, or, you know, Tums or whatever it is. And, you know, it's changing their belief that there's a better way where they never have to take another Tums again. You know, they never have to have chalk in their throat again. You know, so what you're crafting is this series of posts. And the idea is that, you know, each one serves a purpose and a goal. You're not just asking people to join your email list all the time. But if your email list is the thing that gets people to where you want them to be, great. You know, that needs to be one of your social media goals for sure. So did any of the founders want to talk about goals at all? I wanted to share some more specific examples and allow time for questions too, but I wanted to give anybody else a chance. Good?
Yeah, go right into it. We're good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let me share my screen again. This is
Just so that you guys know, while Jerry's getting set up, in the membership, I got to setting my goal, and I realized that people buy from me after they've actually experienced me on a Zoom call, specifically a webinar or a one-on-one call. So I have now oriented myself to push my webinar a lot more, and you've probably seen that on all my media channels.
and that's like a great realization. And then even those supporting posts that we were talking about, you know, a lot of times when somebody has a business that mostly comes from referrals, and then they try and switch to like bringing in cold leads, for example, and they're like, yeah, I just got to get them on a call. You know, the referral business is great, because by the time somebody comes to you, they're kind of like, hey, my best friend said you're awesome. So like, how many credit card payments do I need to make? You know, like they're just ready. And we can use social media to get them to that point, sometimes before you even have the Zoom call, to where they're so warmed up that, you know, when you're doing your thing with them, and they're just kind of waiting, like, okay, so when are we gonna, like, yeah, okay, so what, like, when do we start? When, you know, when is this thing? And so that's what's really powerful. And sometimes it still takes the call to close them, but all of that stuff adds up. So this is just a document that I have in my membership of some other social media goals. I talked about how, you know, top of mind awareness is a terrible goal, except for some businesses. And the first business that I used, that I kind of crafted this for years ago when I was at an agency, was this auto body repair shop. You know, and I know they're called different things around the world, but basically when you get into a crash, this is where you take them to get your car fixed. Well, nobody is, you know, when they've been in a crash, they're like, all right, now I'm going to start researching and do a 2-week research project on where I'm going to take my car to get fixed, right? You got to get your car fixed. So it was important for this company to be top of mind. And so we came up with this concept of basically sharing these. We shared belief changing content, which was important. And then we shared these Throwback Thursday old cars, and they would essentially go viral. I mean, it was nuts. And I mean, it turned out to be the simplest strategy and super, super effective. So top of mind awareness can be good. Email list is good. Lead generation is really good. Sometimes when you look at this list too, you're just like, I'll take all the goals, please. But it's really important that you focus, because anything we put, you know, we spread our efforts too thin on anything, just like trying to be on 7 social media networks at once, then we don't do any of them well. Building and maintaining relationships. So people that are in the referral business, you know, if Chelsea, if a lot of your clients come from being referred to by past clients, then it's a good idea to maintain that relationship and stay in touch with them. Website traffic seems like a no-brainer for all of us. Similar to when we were talking about the email list with Chelsea, you want to make sure that your website gets them to take that next step. So sometimes if somebody has e-commerce and they just send all this traffic to their site and nobody buys, well, then the website traffic is not a good goal, or it can't be the primary goal. First, you need to have product awareness or something so that when they do go, they're ready to buy. Social proof can be a great goal. If Marla is trying to raise her profile and have people know that she's legit and she's a leader in this industry, dribbling in the Guinness World Record on occasion, can be great. Sometimes it's knowing you have good reviews, a certain number of followers, a certain number of past clients, number of years and clients that you've served. Those can all serve as social proof. Building a community is a less common goal, but it can be really powerful for the right business. Like if you have a business where people, see others joining you and they get like FOMO or anything like that, that can be a really powerful way to kind of bring in the rest of those people. And then of course, promoting product always be good. If you've got, especially with e-commerce or promoting your services, sometimes like with Tom, the dryer vent guy, it's just a matter of knowing this thing is a thing that's existed and, oh, that's why my clothes don't dry anymore, or why my power bill went up, or, whatever it might be. One-on-one conversations, this is what Marion just talked about. And, there are less common goals. There may be other ones that, aren't any that you've ever heard anywhere. I spoke at a conference for charity auctioneers. I used to work as a charity auctioneer before COVID. And so I was invited to speak about social media at this conference in Mexico. And I met this guy there and he's like, hey, I think I got my social media goal. I said, oh, okay, cool. What is it? And he goes, that's to look busy. I said, what do you mean it's to look busy? He said, well, I found out that when people think I'm busy, they essentially hire me because they assume I'm good at my job, right? Like if somebody's always booked, there's that kind of scarcity mentality and we go, oh, wow, they must be really good at their job. And so I'll tell you, a full-time professional auctioneer might only work 30 to 50 nights out of a year. Most benefit auctions are in the spring and the fall. And this is all pre-COVID, of course. Now a lot of them are virtual. And there's only so many Friday and Saturday nights, right? And so, but every time he'd go, he wore bow ties. Every time I pick out a new bow tie, I post a picture. Every time I have a meeting, every time I'm filling out a contract, hey, new contract with a client today. And he found that people are like, wow, you're doing so well. You must be really good. I just told my friend about you. She's on a committee for an auction, for her nonprofit. And it was really effective. I wish it was that easy for all of us. I wish I could just walk around pretending I'm working all the time. But that was his social media goal and it works. And of course, he's good at what he does. You can't do that and be terrible at it or else it would end really, really quickly. So I told you that we talk about how to eliminate the unnecessary tasks. And this is that next piece after the social media goal. And so this is that social media plan. We set up all the networks, we start posting, we wait for money. And what happens is because there's no goals here, we have no idea what's working, what's not working. So we do all this stuff. And then maybe our business starts growing, but we don't know what's causing it. So we don't want to stop doing anything. So alternatively, we want to reverse engineer our goals backward to the tasks that lead up to them. So for example, and the question you use for this is simply, okay, what happens before that? So in this example, you've got revenue first. Those are the dollar signs. It's like, okay, well, what happens before that? And the example I gave for my business is when I get into a one-on-one conversation. We have a conversation about their business. Okay, what happens before that? Well, we get into the direct messages on Instagram because that's where the conversation happens. Okay, well, what happens before that? I post content that leads to direct messages. So like that's one of the great things about Instagram stories, Facebook stories too, is every reply is a private message. And it doesn't have to be about my business. I can be like, hey, here's my puppy. What kind of dog do you have? And people reply, we talk about dogs. And then if they're the right fit, I can steer the conversation toward their business or marketing or social media. So this is basically what I can do backward. And then we flip it around and here's the strategy. Content that leads to DMs on Instagram, conversation about their business, revenue. So now I know I just need to be posting content that leads to direct messages. And you can do this from every one of your goals. And if anything that you're doing on social media is not leading to your goal, then you have to ask yourself, is it worth my time at all? And it's not just eliminating all of the stuff that, isn't working at all. As you get better, you're going to want to eliminate stuff that's not working very well too. For anybody that has heard of the 80-20 rule or Pareto's principle in all of its, iterations, you want to do the 20% of stuff that brings in 80% of the revenue or donations or followers or subscribers or whatever your goal is, and then eliminate the rest. Because if you double down on that 20%, you're going to do a lot better with that. So that's the reverse engineering. And that's how that works. And, this is kind of what happens when you do that. You get the goals dialed in, you reverse engineer, you eliminate the rest of the stuff. This is something that the first client I did this with years ago when I was at the agency said, like, why is it that like we were doing all this stuff? And it was like, well, but you didn't have any goals. You weren't leading to anything. This is what it was all about. This is where, we got down to what actually makes a difference. We focused on that, and it makes a huge difference. And it can be hard. It can be really hard to stop doing things that you've been doing for years. One, because there's an enormous mindset block because you're just like, was it all for nothing? But on the flip side, are you going to continue to do it for 5 more years if you know it's not leading to anything? No, at some point you just have to cut bait and move on. And then the other piece is sometimes you're like, well, what if it's doing this? Or, I spoke at a conference, I was gonna say a couple of years ago now, we don't do that in person anymore. And this woman came up to me afterward and she was like clutching her phone and she's like, I agree with what you're saying. I was talking about focusing on like one social network to start, but I'm not giving up my Twitter, and I was like, you don't have to give up your Twitter. Keep doing your Twitter, do it all you want, but that's your leisure time. That's your Netflix time. Don't say I'm too busy for social media and browse Twitter for an hour a day, 7 hours a week, roughly, 365 hours a year when you got one client from it 3 years ago and nothing else that you can show for it. Twitter is sort of it's the easy social network to pick on because it can be such a time suck and it's not very efficient for most business owners outside of, celebrities and media. Twitter is still great and it's still a great platform. It's just not great for marketing in terms of businesses and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Wow, Jerry, thank you so much. You guys may have noticed when I started working with Jerry, we stopped putting up quotes in our Masterful Manifestors Instagram because he kept saying, don't put inspirational quotes. Yeah, because that's not what people don't look at the quotes and then all of a sudden decide I gotta be a Masterful Manifestors. So love that.
But
so
they
much.
can.
Yeah.
They can. It's just a matter of knowing that for your business.
That
in
wasn't
some
our
businesses,
funnel.
one of the things. Okay. Yeah. In some businesses, one of the things we have to convince people of is that they can do it or to believe in themselves or that it can work. Like that's a big thing. And so if you've got quotes around that, great. But I had one woman go through my course and she helps course creators implement and launch their courses. And she's like, I was spending hours making these beautiful quotes and putting them up and they'd get a couple of likes and a couple of shares and nobody that was my target audience. And I realized I just need to spend that time on these other things and, dropped it and, nobody noticed. That's the other thing. Sometimes you put all this effort in and you stop doing it and nobody notices and you're like, oh, now it hurts worse.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so
yeah.
much for being here. Thank you, Jerry, for taking the time to share this with us. If you're watching the replay, make sure you comment below with your social media goals. We'd love to hear them. Thank you again, Jerry.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.